just dishonor and honesty. Probably the reason you get sucked on me if you're properly addressing she in my presence. Line with pride, just live the dream. Make to believe.
What's up, everybody? I'm Gymkhana Josh, and welcome to Beyond the Apex, where we talk about motorcycle everything, and then some. Tonight is going to be a great show. We actually have something very informative, very educational for you riders out there. But before we do that, we're still, again, in the middle of this pandemic, and everybody's starting to go back to work. Everybody's starting to kind of like, well, not everybody, I'm not going to say everybody, but there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of things that are opening up. There's a lot of tracks that are starting to do public events now, so maybe this is a sign that we're all kind of getting back to normal. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see what happens. And as I said throughout this entire thing, definitely appreciate all the medical workers, paramedics, healthcare providers, anybody that's out there keeping us safe, keeping us healthy, and anybody that's actually going back to work now. Thank you, because we're getting this economy going again, and that's also quite necessary for sure. Let's see here. So, across from me, to my left, to your right, is Butter, my co-host.
Yo. What's up?
What's up, man? How you been this week? What you been up to?
Just getting back to health, getting back to normal. See some doctors this week after my little mishap over the Mother's Day weekend. But I'm back at it. Feel a little better. I am going to take myself to the track this weekend, and
oh shit,
as they would say, heart don't fail me now.
Hopefully nothing fails you now.
Just make sure you stay out of the heat and don't overexert yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna just old lady it, go right around the track, ride around like Ronnie from Gotham, just slow.
Yeah, oh damn,
nice and easy, man.
Yeah, I'm going up there really to just see the fellas. It's good. It's a lot of people that I don't get to see throughout the year except at the track, so it's going to be really fun. So I'm excited. Shout out to my sponsors, Prospect Power Sports, Mike's Pro Lids, my man Hollywood Stunts. Check him out in his new gear. Let's go.
All right, that's what's up. All right, so on your screen, you'll notice below me to the bottom left is a new guy to the show, Mr. David Berman. He's actually a criminal defense lawyer in practices here in New York City, but he actually has a history in civil litigation as well, so very well-rounded, very educated, very knowledgeable, and also just all-around really cool guy. I had the opportunity to go ride with him on Sunday 3 days ago, and we had some fun. Oh my god, if you haven't seen the video, check out my channel, because I'm actually going to be posting the video tomorrow of us riding up north in the twisties in New York. That was fun. Watching dude hang off his Harley in front of me was definitely a different experience for me, for sure. But tonight he's here to talk about law, and in general, just he is a man of the people. He's out here protecting our liberties, protecting our freedoms, and tonight he's going to be informing you about some things that maybe impact the everyday rider and what they might run into as far as law enforcement and the repercussions for our actions out here, honestly. He's with Tillman Associates. If you'd like actual legal consultation with him or his people, you can call 777-377-8666 or
it's
chat on their website. What's that? Say again?
877.
777-877?
No, excuse me. Let me bring the phone number up real quick.
All right. While he's bringing that up,
you misstated it. Our office's toll-free number is, excuse me here, it's just coming up. 877-377-8666. That's 877-377-8666.
I wish I could make like the number like flash on the screen right now, like one of those infomercials. That'd be so cool. Well, if you don't want to call toll free, you can also hit the chat on the website. You can do like the text chat with a live person, or you can email them. What is the email? It's like at tillamlawfirm.com.
Info at tillamlawfirm.com.
Okay, info at tillamlawfirm.com. Actually, what I'll do is after this live stream,
you can also email me directly at dberman at tillamlawfirm.com.
Okay. I'll add the links in the description below. So if you're interested in getting in contact with David or his law firm, all the links will be right down there. So episode 5, Beyond the Apex, we're talking about rules of the road, the law, how to stay in line with it, how to deviate from it responsibly, I guess you could say, and also like how to pull yourself out of the fire when you're faced with the law, like when you're faced with being in violation of it. None of what you hear or see here, disclaimer, right? None of what you hear or see here is a client relationship with David Berman. And it's not to be considered legal advice. This is not a legal forum to give legal advice. So if you actually want legal advice from David or his associates, you have to contact them directly. Or if you're not in New York State, then contact a lawyer in your state. This is not legal advice, what you hear today. Is there anything you would want to say specifically about that, David?
Only to reiterate exactly what you said, Josh. You know,
what happened?
Ooh.
He froze up.
He must got his Wi-Fi from Bender, and Bender. Did they not settle your case, buddy? Good old Berman. You can count on Berman for that one.
Oh my goodness.
Well, till we get David back on.
Pardon me, Josh. It looks like we just had some technical difficulties there. Anyway, as I was saying, you know, I understand that having an attorney discuss the law, you know, in front of you know you, the general riding public, you know, you may you know, hear a couple things or see a couple things that may pique your interest. However, I must be absolutely clear that nothing I say here today should be considered legal advice, right? If you are in trouble, you must contact an attorney who's licensed in your state and is able to protect your rights.
Right.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Nothing that I say here will imply an attorney-client relationship between any of the viewers and myself. Okay, just to be absolutely clear about that. Should you want legal advice from me, it's absolutely acceptable for you to contact me at my email address, dberman@tillamlawfirm.com, or at the law firm's phone number, 877-377-8666.
Roger that. Roger that.
And that being said, some of the things I'm going to discuss today are going to be very educational for the riding public, to sort of you know, teach a little bit about the law and discuss some of what our rights are.
Hell yeah. So actually, just to kind of intro to the conversation, I'll say this. You know, bikers and car enthusiasts, I spent a lot of time as a car guy too before I even sat on a bike, but bikers and car enthusiasts, they seem to have this problem where you can't stand the lines, if you know what I mean. We like fast vehicles. We don't want to drive out of our way to spend so much money and time just to go to a track, just to, you know, like push the limits a little bit. I've been that guy before, so I'm not gonna say, but whatever. I won't go so much into that. But sometimes.
Pardon me 1 second, Josh. I just have to do something off screen real quick.
Do your thing, man. I would just say though that, you know, sometimes us as enthusiasts, we have to just kind of get our jollies in, you know, back roads, parking lots, sometimes even the highway. You know, there's certain ways we can be smarter about doing these sort of things, even though it's against the law in most cases. But there's different levels of responsibility and consideration when it comes to how far some people will go outside those lines, right? The law. And David helps us with damage control after we've gone outside the lines and we get caught. David's there to kind of like, you know, make sure we don't get burned too hard. And
yeah, that or you know, if you accidentally hit somebody,
true,
and really hurt them,
right,
and you know, all of a sudden you're worried about your life savings.
True.
You know, that is another instance where you know, somebody may need an attorney.
True.
If they're really going at it, you know.
So actually, just
So-
to kick this off, David, I want to just ask. I know we've talked on the side at not great length, but at least quite a bit about this topic. But I wanted to hear your live opinion on this about what are some of the common things that you see motorcycle riders getting hemmed up for, getting snatched up for by law enforcement. What are like some of the things that are right there? You know, if somebody is watching this show and they're like, damn, what am I going to do in this situation? What are they going through? What are the things that they are experiencing?
Sure. I mean, and one of the, I'd say the top thing is a violation of the motorcycle equipment statute, VTL 381, which is the statute in New York that lists the required equipment on your motorcycle. You know, you have to have turn signals, you have to have a headlight, you got to have front brakes on bikes that are built after a certain year. You know, those sort of things. But also, you know, that same statute also covers, you know, not having handlebars that go above your shoulders. The grips have to rest at your shoulder level, and also the motorcycle helmet law is in VTL 381. I'd say also aggravated unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle. There's a lot of motorcycle riders out there who are riding without a Class M, and that's, you know, that's no good. You definitely can get into some pretty serious trouble for aggravated unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle. I think there are, although I personally haven't defended anybody for you know, a grand larceny or a robbery in the second degree, which are what New York uses to prosecute auto theft when a vehicle, larceny in the third degree typically, unless, I mean, there aren't too many bikes that cost more than $50,000. Grand larceny is graduated based on the degree of severity. So larceny, grand larceny in the third degree goes from 3,000, I believe it's 3,000, to let me just double check that.
Leo,
right
I would
here.
say this, yo. You
Yeah,
just
3,000 to 50,000, $3,000 to $50,000. So that covers most motorcycle thefts, and that's a Class D felony in New York. Very serious charge.
You're gonna go to jail, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you kind of went from 0 to 100, though.
Unless
real quick,
unless,
you went from equipment violations to going to jail.
You're asking what are some of the common things? These are some of the common things. There's a lot of motorcyclists out there who are riding stolen bikes, unfortunately, and you know, it's
if you're
sad
riding
to see.
a stolen motorcycle, maybe you don't know somehow it's stolen, but I think in most cases, I mean, you kind of get what you deserve in that case, honestly. But all right, back to the original thing, right? The equipment violation thing. One thing that I had talked to you about the other night was the GoPro, right? Everybody wants to know, can I rock a GoPro on my helmet? Because I've seen the videos on YouTube, guys getting pulled over and they get told, oh, you can't have that on your helmet. You can't have anything mounted on the outside of your helmet. And then they ask the officers, you know, well, tell me the law, tell me the statute, tell me the federal regulation, tell me anything. And the officer stands there and they look on their phone for like 35 minutes and they don't come up with anything. And then it comes back to us like, well, is it legal or is it illegal? These guys usually get off with, oh, well, I'm just going to give you a warning, but is it legal or is it illegal? Can I mount a GoPro on the outside of my helmet? I do it. You know, let me just go ahead and incriminate myself right there. I have a sticky mount on my helmet. Is that illegal or is it legal? I feel like it's a safety thing.
Sure.
For me, it's safety. I want to record everything that's around me because when some dumb shit goes down, I want to be able to say, I have a video of that blue car pulling right into my front bumper, you know? Is it legal or is it illegal?
Right. So, without question, dash cams in cars are lawful. You know, there may be a slight issue with obstruction of the windshield. You know, you can get ticketed for that, but that's not very serious. You know, it's the same ticket that, you know, police officers write for you having the little tree hanging from your rearview mirror. On motorcycles, it's a little bit of a different story. So VTL 381, section 6 is the motorcycle helmet law in New York State. That helmet law requires that helmets sold and worn in New York State meet the strictures of Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard Regulation 571. I'm not exactly sure what the last couple decimals are, but it's I think it's 571-218. Could be wrong though. Anyway, that very complex and comprehensive federal regulation is promulgated, to create the safety standards for motorcycle helmets. Now, in theory, okay, this is in theory, glue or adhesive that's applied to the paint, for which there is some sort of a specification in that very technical and precise regulation. Also for the foam too, may in fact deviate from that federal standard. However, I have never seen or heard of a prosecutor prosecuting the scientific evidence of whether adhesive damages or physically alters a helmet to the degree where it no longer complies with the federal regulation.
Really though?
I've never personally seen it. Like I said, and that's just why in theory in theory it could be unlawful. I've never seen it prosecuted personally.
Was that just because
however,
nobody actually takes it to court, or because?
Well, yeah, I've never seen a prosecutor make that argument. You asked me a hypothetical question. I'm giving you my best answer here.
Okay. I mean, it's hypothetical, but it's not hypothetical. Guys get pulled over for it.
It's a yes no question, but really the answer is maybe. It really depends on the circumstances of how the GoPro is attached to the helmet, whether the helmet is physically altered at all. There are a lot of other factors that go into play here.
Okay.
And, I can't say necessarily for certain that like a dash cam on a car or a camera mounted in a particular place where it's lawfully mounted, I can't say for certain that it's legal to affix a GoPro to your helmet. Okay. I can't give a definite answer on that. What I can say is I've never seen it prosecuted.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, that still kind of leaves the floodgates open. That still leaves people to do the research for themselves or whatnot. But actually,
so let me just
go ahead, Butter.
Unfortunately, Josh, I think that you're going to find out that the law is a lot more gray than it is black and white.
Yeah, and I know as technology progresses and things change, things will probably get more gray and then more black and white and then more gray. What'd you have, Butter? You were about to say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Butter.
So I know the VTA law talks about like altering the helmet and blah blah blah. But you can also add to it. So they do have, this company came out with this actual mounts that go on your helmet without altering the helmet. So you might want to check those things out. Get yourself out of trouble if need be. You know what I mean?
What do you mean? How's it different than like a sticky mount?
So these mounts don't adhere to the helmet. It's a new strap that goes on, like if you're adding a strap to your helmet, like to put it on. There's different ways around it. Again, like David said, there's really hasn't been any cases prosecuted, but the officers non-knowledge of knowing this stuff, it's what's going to hurt him from writing the ticket anyway. So unless he has expertise knowledge on how to write this summons, it's just irrelevant. But that's just one of the many excuses that they use to pull you over. One of the main excuses that they actually use to pull you over when they're doing these so-called checkpoints, loud exhaust. That's a common occurrence. I've seen police officers try to give someone a summons for having excessively loud pipes, and it's a stock pipe, like literally a stock pipe. First of all, I've never seen the officer with a muffler system, or you can test the muffler system. So a lot of it is just crackdown, just giving a reason to pull over bikers. And the only thing I can say is, as long as your paperwork is intact, your shit is legit, your inspection sticker is valid, they're most likely treat them with respect. They most likely will just let you keep on moving.
On the other hand, though, Butter, if you antagonize the police, which I do not recommend anybody does.
Absolutely not.
And if you have a long history of violating traffic law, you may very well leave of being pulled over by the police if you have a motorcycle that's been modified with a fistful of tickets.
Hey, honestly, you can't keep being punished for previous offenses, by the way. That's not legal for them to punish you for previous offenses.
Josh,
well, hold on. Before you say that, the police officer, hold on, Josh. I'm David. The police officer will definitely not have no knowledge of you being an asshole. But if you got caught for speeding 100 times, the judge will know that. So, in terms of the police officer, has nothing to do with it.
That's like double jeopardy.
The police are able to look up people's driving history on the side of the road with their little computer in their car.
Absolutely not.
They can't see my driving history?
Absolutely not. They cannot see your driving history. Like, you got a ticket in 2007 for speeding, they're not going to see that.
That's information to me. I thought they could. As many times as I got pulled over back in the day, I thought they were just lining up to catch my ass.
Perhaps Butter knows something that we don't,
So how about this? All right, there was a couple things that
Josh,
I really want to touch on.
1 second. I want to circle back. You mentioned something about it not being lawful for you to be punished twice for the same crime.
Right.
In one sense, that is true, but in the sense that former crimes enhance your sentence, it's not true, right? So there's the double jeopardy clause in the Constitution. The double jeopardy clause basically prevents you from being tried for the same crime or the same acts involved in a crime twice, okay? If you've been convicted of a crime in the past, it may impact how the prosecutors attempt to deal with your case. So, for example, if you have a long criminal record, and you're charged with a crime, it may very well be that the prosecutor will, prosecute that more aggressively and be less willing to plea bargain and give favorable terms in a plea bargain. I think that it doesn't. It certainly doesn't help at sentencing if you're convicted.
That's interesting, actually. That's good information because I didn't know that. I thought that. Well, I guess I knew that. I thought they could see everything that I've done and they were going to judge me based on that anyway. So whether or not it's legal to do that, I assumed that I was already being judged for what I had previously done. But I guess kind of fast forward a little bit, just to kind of speed up this specific topic, right? How do we ensure that our rights are respected, though? I mean, whether you did something 5 years ago or 4 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever it is, maybe you messed up real bad. You did something bad in the past. How do we ensure that our rights are respected during this traffic stop today? If I get pulled over tomorrow, what's the best way to approach it?
So let me chime in. So it's all about respect. I get pulled over plenty, a lot, and sometimes my approach to the stop, the officer already knows that I have someone, or I possibly in law enforcement, because of the way I stopped and handled the situation in terms of taking my keys out.
How you stop?
Well, basically, I have the keys already out, dangling. I put them at a certain place. Even in my car, I put them on top of the roof. Anyhow, there's different approaches that will make
good information too, by the way. That's good information.
There's a lot of ways that you can ensure officer's safety prior to him reaching you. And if you do the right things, no sudden moves, no trying to hide shit in your pocket. If you get pulled over and you're on your bike and you decide to stop, which you should legally should stop. Everybody, I'm reminding everyone to stop if a police officer pulls you over. Show the officer respect. Turn your bike off. Listen, I put the key on the fucking ground just to let him know I ain't running. Just show respect to this law enforcement officer that he's pulling me over. And from there, there's just little things like that you can do to ensure his safety, and things might work out different for you.
What you got, David?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually dovetail off of that. Speaking of showing respect, just like coming to meet somebody with an open cut, right? When a police officer is approaching you, you're a total stranger to him. A lot of the police, may feel threatened.
He's got my record, right? So.
Well, I mean, he's able to see. If he's run your plates already and he sees you have an extensive criminal history, they may be a little bit more aggressive.
Times, he knows me.
That's certainly possible. But respect is critical in any interaction with anybody. That's just the regular people thing. You don't want the situation to go wrong. Butter had a lot of really good suggestions. I think that his suggestions to turn the bike off right away, keep your hands in a place where the police can see them, and let them know where your wallet is before you reach for it. Because bikers put their wallets in a lot of weird places because you may not have, if you're wearing leather pants or if you're wearing chaps or whatever.
Assless chaps like you wear.
Yeah, like I wear. Yes. Yeah.
I got a set in the closet I haven't busted out yet. It's starting to get warm though, so I might bust it.
Whatever. You put your wallet in your saddlebag or your handlebar bag. A lot of people do that, and if all of a sudden the police officer sees you rummaging around in your pants pocket, because chaps have the long, deep pocket down the side, or your saddlebags or whatever, they may think you're reaching for a weapon. And that's not good. You don't want to do that. So you let them know where the wallet is before you go for it, and do it that way.
Okay.
Now, we're going to move over to how do you ensure that your rights are respected, right?
Yes.
So here's two things. The Constitution, in the Fourth Amendment, guarantees you the right to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures, okay? And that all search warrants are going to be issued on probable cause.
They searched me just going over the bridge, going to Manhattan, so how's that legal?
There are reasonable searches, not just unreasonable searches, okay? Reasonable searches do not need warrants. So the motorcycle checkpoints that we so often see in the New York City area fall under that category of reasonable searches under what's known as the special needs doctrine. So special needs doctrine takes what would be considered an unreasonable search, right, and makes it a reasonable one. The special needs doctrine.
They just word it differently so that it makes it legal.
That's not really true. Basically, you can have a warrantless search checkpoint or roadblock to search everybody.
They don't stop cars. They just stop motorcycles, though.
Yes, but let me finish. As long as the safety needs of the public are specifically met through that particular special need. I'd have to look up the exact legal test for you, but the justification under special needs doctrine for motorcycle checkpoints specifically is safety. That's how they've been justified at the federal appellate level, one court beneath the United States Supreme Court.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's...
So to chime in on what David was saying, so that particular checkpoint, when he says safety, they use the word safety.
Right.
When you take your car to get inspected, they actually plug it into a machine, and there's a lot of emission stuff that goes into those newer cars that tell them, there's a problem with the car, whatever the case may be, and then the inspector should automatically check the vehicle for other stuff like tire tread and brake line and all that stuff. But most of it is more safety emission. On a motorcycle, you really don't have that. On a motorcycle, it's just an actual visual check by a state certified inspection place, and basically they're going to check the necessary things, tires, brakes, stuff like that. They don't check for if the bike is legit or nothing like that. So when they use the word safety, that's what they use to get you.
Like a catch-all,
they were stopping
catch-all statement, right?
Yeah. So basically, so motorcycles are mostly in people's driveways. They're not parked in the street as much as a car would. So the city doesn't get any good money out of motorcycles because they're a lot hot hidden. So they do inspection check. If you got a car, they don't take your car if your inspection is expired. They just give you a ticket. In New York State, they take your motorcycle, even if you're on it. So if it's parked, they tow it. If you don't have the sticker on it, if you don't have your registration on your car, they'll never tow your car. They never do. They just give you a ticket for not having it typed back. Yeah. In New York State, the reason why they do that is because you don't have to turn in your New York State plates on a motorcycle. So I could be passing you my plate, and you could be riding around dirty for ever long as before they catch you. So that's one of the reasons. A lot of times you see a lot of these checkpoints. Cops are checking for bikes that are stolen. So I have like 10 license plates in my box. You know what I mean? So if I really want to do something stupid, I'd have plates to go with it. But again, it will come back to me because they have my name on it. But a lot of these dudes will find the plate, steal someone's plate, and now you can run around with no issues. So when they do a lot of these checkpoints, is again like David was alluding to, they're looking for stolen bikes. They're looking for bikes that are not legit, bikes that are not registered. You have some guys. I've seen guys ride their bikes. Bike hasn't been registered in like 4 or 5 years. Right. And that's what they're looking for. Unfortunately, because there's such a high rate of it in New York City, everyone pays for it.
So I would say this though, and David, you might not be able to comment so fiery about this or so adamantly about this, but I feel like there are some laws out there and there are some practices out there that target motorcycle riders. Yeah, they're looking for stolen bikes and whatnot, but I feel like there's a lot of shit that goes down in New York City specifically that it's super inconvenient from a law-abiding citizen standpoint to have to deal with, honestly. Mind you, all right, go ahead.
Josh, you're 100% right. 110% right. I couldn't agree with you more. There are a tremendous number of practices in this city, from discriminatory ticketing to unwarranted towing to motorcycle only checkpoints that and also crackdown style enforcement and very severe enforcement of VTL 381 and against motorcycles. It's a really terribly sad thing to see. Yeah. And
I've never seen something like this before in my life. Whether it's Virginia, Massachusetts, obviously like Japan was never like this. But when I came back here and saw this stuff, it's amazing.
I don't know exactly why it is that motorcycles are so heavily policed in New York. From what I understand, historically speaking, the city has always had a tempestuous relationship with bikers, particularly the Hells Angels, who had their clubhouse down on 3rd Street for a very long time. The NYPD was regularly trying to prosecute the Hells Angels and search their clubhouse. They found any possible reason to try and get in there. But I couldn't tell you why it is. But I can tell you that there are many organizations out there that are absolutely fighting to get some of these just discriminatory and annoying
When you say fighting, how do you mean
regulation.
fighting? How do we change the way it is?
Well, we have to protest. My belief is protest and legislative change. But I think that the New York legislature has not come around to the view that motorcycles are legitimate means of transportation all year round, that can replace cars. And I don't see that sort of legislative change coming through. And it's reflected in the fact that motorcycles were not exempted from the congestion tax.
What's that? What's the congestion tax?
The congestion tax, for those who are not aware, was passed through in last year's budget. Basically, it's going to tax anybody who is operating a motor vehicle in Midtown Manhattan by putting tolls right across right across the roads that enter into Midtown Manhattan and farther south. And
more tolls?
Yeah, more tolls. Yes, and it's specifically designed to reduce. One of the said justifications is to reduce congestion, but in practical terms, it's really there to fund the subway.
Revenue generation, yeah.
That's right, and if it was about congestion, then motorcycles would absolutely be exempted from this. It's not. It's manifest, categorically unfair that a motorcycle should have to pay the same toll as a Suburban.
So again, back to what we were just talking about. How do we change the laws? How do we change this mentality of like targeting?
I think that bikers have to get organized. We have to start rallying around our advocacy groups like Abate and Riders Against Congestion, and we have to protest. We have to march. We have to parade on our bikes, and bikers in the city really have to be heard on a city level and hopefully get to a national level, because the degree of discriminatory treatment that motorcyclists face in New York is terrible. It's unheard of, like you said, Josh, anywhere else in the civilized world. Other cities, even other major metropolises like Paris, London, Madrid, Tokyo, that have similar congestion tax systems. They exempt motorcycles and they incentivize motorcycle ridership. It's incredulous to me that the city cannot see, and the state also cannot see the net benefit in improving the numbers of people on two wheels. Whether it's from the perspective of reducing costs, the damage of the road, or reducing carbon pollution. Opening up more parking space.
It's about the money. It's about the money. And actually, I kind of can answer my own question. We talked about it the other night. To answer this question honestly, to make sure that laws in the future do not target motorcycles and mess up our day and do all these crazy things to target us, when it starts impacting the everyday civilian's money, that's when people start caring. Honestly, when you start putting it into perspective and you say, like, you know what, how many police officers do we have just sitting out here on the roads? How much are we paying them to just sit out here on the roads and pull over motorcycles to check their registration, to talk to them, to take off GoPros, whatever the case may be? When you put things down in dollars and cents, whether it's the local government, the federal government, the city population, the next door neighbor, I don't even care who it is. When it comes to dollars and cents, a lot of people start paying attention. And we talked about this the other night. Honestly, when you start putting down dollars and cents and making the case that this is costing the city and the state and the country a lot of money policing these stupid laws, maybe things will change.
Forget the cost of policing and prosecuting these violations. Because I have to say, there are an untold degree of savings that are recorded with, reducing the amount of four-wheel traffic on the road based on just road maintenance alone. I mean, it would save the state and the city a fortune, in repairing tolls and bridges. And
I wish I had statistics in front of me, but
I mean, look, if we could sit down here and look at the figures, I mean, it would be very interesting to parse it out. I would have to sit down and crunch the numbers, and I'm only speaking theoretically. I don't know the exact number, dollars and cents.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's manifest really that the city spends a fortune fixing the streets and roads, and traffic prosecution also is, I'm sure it's very expensive for the city.
Right.
Both of those areas really can get wound down a bit if the city gives motorcyclists less of a hard time.
Yeah.
And if ridership was in fact incentivized, I really think that it would bring a great deal of savings to the city, and it would open up a lot of space that's currently cluttered up with cars.
Actually, like I said, from my experience living in Japan for so long, dude, like riding a motorcycle or riding a scooter, mostly scooters. Like scooters are probably more prevalent than the motorcycle riders, but riding a two-wheeled vehicle in Japan is just like okay, you ride a scooter or you ride a motorcycle. It's accepted. It's encouraged. It's not some like taboo weird thing where people immediately have some weird preconceived notion about you. You're trying to save money and you're going a short distance. It makes so much sense to ride a bicycle, a scooter, a motorcycle. It's cheaper for everybody. Honestly, it makes a whole lot of sense. But until people get that in their heads, until that's kind of an accepted like practice, I don't think it's really things aren't really gonna change that much, honestly. But
sure,
I would say this again. In addition to you said protests. There's another thing we can do besides protests too to change the laws. We can also, when we do events, when we go out there and donate, when we go out there and contribute our time, we contribute our efforts. I'm not saying to make it actually, Butter, this would be a good point for you too. I know that you actually do great work in the community. It's not something that I think should be on the forefront of your ministries, your outreach, but I hope that everybody that you interact with, that you do good for, realizes that like all these guys are bikers. Yeah, it's Hustle Kings. Yeah, it's for David. Yeah, it's New York City Gotham Riders. But I want them to understand though that like these are bikers. These are regular human beings coming out of their house to like provide food, to provide clothing, to provide money, to provide time. But I don't think it, in my opinion, in my experience, in my outside perspective, I don't think it really has that connection like, oh, these are bikers helping us out. It's Butter doing good work or the Hustle Kings doing good work. The idea of bikers is still kind of a taboo. Oh, those guys are in gangs and they do drugs and they have weapons and stuff like that. What do you got, David?
Josh, that is a good point to, just to kind of dovetail off what you said. Motorcycling is a counterculture, biker culture evolved alongside hippie culture in the 60s. It's a total, left field breakaway from squares and, regular people, you just beaver cleaver or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Leave it to Beaver and all that. That's not what we're about as people. But that doesn't mean we're bad people. As you can see, I'm an educated professional. Butter is a pillar of the community.
Also educated.
Yes, and also educated, of course. Um, there are many people out there who are bikers. Matter of fact, my friend Dr. Jason Chamacles, a doctor and attorney, also a biker. Um, Mitchell Proner is another is an attorney that I've spoken to about other motorcycle issues. Also a biker. There are many professionals out there, and your neighbors, your friends, people who you work with, who are also bikers. Simply riding a motorcycle doesn't make anybody a bad person or a nuisance, and it's offensive. Personally, to me, I find it to be an offensive stereotype that has really worn out its welcome, and it's really damaged bikers' rights for a very long time, and it needs to end. Seriously, it's time. In 2020, that people have to realize that riding a motorcycle is not a crime, and motorcyclists and bikers are not bad people. We're people just like them. They just don't understand us.
That's true.
Don't you agree, Butter?
Well, there's two things that I have to say about that. My mother always told me, my grandparents always told me, tell me who you hang with and I tell you who you are. And it's very simple. Obviously, we're all gonna have a bullseye on our back because we ride a bike, first of all. But the thing is to, like you said, make good bones in your community. Start making those bones better outside of your community. I've had cops who pulled me over and like, oh yeah, I remember I saw you, and it turns into from a traffic stop to a conversation. Hey, yeah, man, blah, 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 and it's like cool. And I've also have police officers who, even when I've started events, have called me to ensure if I needed any help with safety and trying to make the event better or whatever they can do to help. So there is a lot of cops who will support bikers, especially in a good cause, and those are the opportunities that you take to make good mends. Especially, you start with your local precinct. Obviously, you start with your local precinct. You do events in your community, and then as you branch out, you go into the borough, and you meet those guys, and you want to let them know that you're actually doing things that they're gonna be looking at you and say, all right, this is not a bad guy. Unfortunately, some of these guys come out into their cop cars, and I believe, this is just me, that a lot of them, since they don't ride a bike or they're not cool enough to ride a bike, that they're gonna have that I was picked on in high school by a biker kind of mentality, or the tough guy, and they'll give us a hard time. Usually when I see law enforcement guys, everybody's pretty level-headed, and you get this one guy who's obviously 4'12", who just passed the minimum height requirement.
he just comes out and the height to ride.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, he has the height to be accepted in the police department. And then he comes out of his car and he wants to take everybody's bike with no probable cause. So, there's two sides of it. You have cops that are, I know so many cops that are in law enforcement that are cool. Like we spoke earlier, treat them with respect, let them approach the situation knowing that they're going to be safe. There's a lot of things like that happens with both type of police officers. But then you have some cops that, they might see a patch on your back and they're like, oh, this is the type of guy that used to pick on me in school. I'm going to make his life miserable. Could be a doctor. He could be a part of a club, an organization. He'd be on his way to the hospital for all you know. You understand what I'm saying? But that's just both sides of the coin. So, you're going to have people who respect us and respect those who respect them, because obviously it's a two-way street. You see a cop, you run and you take off, or you give him the finger, or you kick his car. Yeah, obviously that's why, unfortunately, the dirt bike riders get a little bit shit under the stick, because there's so many of them out here that are illegal that the legal ones really got no play. They get burnt all the time, and then motorcycles as well. But you get more of that on the dirt bike. The guys who are riding the do purpose bikes, they get treated a little bit more crazy than we do. So if you think we got it bad, the dirt bike riders and the dual sport riders have it worse. So again, it's a two-way street. It's common professionalism. If you get pulled over, stop. If you don't, then make it worse for the rest of us. Because you might blow a cop and take off, and then a group
I've
of
never blown
non.
a cop. Never blown a cop.
No, me neither. Like you go by a cop
You missed
doing 100 and something miles an hour, and now the next bunch that comes in, it might be going to a charity group, a charity event, a funeral, and now they're gonna make their life miserable because the first guy blew past them and didn't stop. So it's always an egotistical thing. So it's always gonna be a hard thing, like David said, man. It's always been against us from the beginning. But again, like I teach my kids who are minority, when approached by a police officer, just CPR, man. And if it doesn't buy you anything, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what to tell them, but again, I approach every situation with courtesy, respect, and I'm not having any bad situations. Knock on wood.
To dovetail off of what Butter
Man,
just
you've
said,
been dovetailing all night. There's a lot of
yeah,
dovetails out here.
there are. It's a split,
Great
It's
cartoon.
it's a little split. It's a turn of phrase I like to use.
Right.
But to follow what Butter just said, you can be respectful all day long to the police, but that doesn't mean that you have to confess to any crimes or give the police evidence that can be used against you when they prosecute you.
Good information right here.
Okay? So the Constitution protects your right against unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay? That's the Fourth Amendment. So when you're pulled over, if the police want to search your saddlebags, you always have the right to tell them, I don't consent to any search. From there, the police are going to, really be able to determine, well, they're not. They may still search your saddlebags, regardless of whether they've done it within or outside of the law. That is really an issue for litigation during a criminal case, but you don't need to consent to them searching your bags. Unfortunately, what has happened, when in my experience, I've seen things like this. There's a couple things. The first one is that somebody who you were spending time with before has left contraband in your bag by mistake.
That's a long story right there. That's a long story.
So that's no good. Okay, you never want that to happen. But you may have no idea that this person left contraband, drugs, firearm you don't have license for, I don't know, any other sort of contraband that one might have. And unfortunately, many of the statutes that prohibit possession of contraband have no intent requirement. And that means that it's called a strict liability statute. And that means that if you have that, if it's anywhere in your motor vehicle, the possession, this is a doctrine called constructive possession. If in a motor vehicle, the possession of that contraband is implied back to the person who is the driver of the motor vehicle, or anybody inside the vehicle, really. But
real quick. So, in probably the next couple minutes, we've got to start winding down. But
sure.
One of the things we talked about before the show kicked off was the NoFault. Can you, within a couple minutes, kind of throw out the NoFault explanation for motorcycle riders? Just a bare bones, couple minutes.
Sure. One of the most oppressive regulations or laws that harms motorcyclists in New York is our exemption from collecting NoFault benefits if we're injured in an accident. Motorcycles are still required to litigate in court any amount of damage that happens to us in a car accident. It could take years and years and years to resolve the case or settle it. And sometimes if someone's insurance policy is exceeded, there may not be any other assets to compensate an injured motorcyclist. really, really a terrible thing. You know, no fault. The distinction between at fault and no fault comes from regulations that were put in place to protect car drivers in in the 60s and 70s. And the no fault system was another theory of how to handle very high volumes of car accident cases in court. And basically, instead of collecting from the party who injured you's insurance company, collect from your own insurance company in the case of a car accident. Unless there's a serious injury, and beyond that serious injury threshold, that's when you get into at-fault tort litigation. Now,
motorcyclists are at fault, or
yeah. I was going to say motorcyclists are exempted from no fault. Okay, it means that you don't have access to be able to claim from your insurance company if you've been injured in an accident that was the fault of somebody else. You have to prove that other person, well, in many cases, you have to prove that the other person was at fault, because the standard tort, the litigating accidents, is a tort known as negligence, 4 elements of which are duty, breach, causation, and harm. And that causation element is very important. And that's where you get the fault versus no fault determination. In a no fault case, all you have to do is, prove that you were injured by somebody else, and the insurance company is required to pay out.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. That's a really good explanation. I hope.
I want to.
Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to also discuss the Fifth Amendment too, to help protect people. I'm going to wrap this up.
Fifth. Go ahead.
It's important to do. You have a right against self-incrimination,
yes,
which is what Josh is referring to, right? the right against self-incrimination.
Dave Chappelle. I plead the Fifth. FIF.
The right against self-incrimination implicitly gives you the right to remain silent when you're talking to the police. And basically what that means is you don't have a duty to answer any of the police's questions beyond identifying yourself. You don't have to tell them where you're going. You don't have to tell them what kind of bike you're riding. You don't have to tell them if your exhaust is modified. You don't have to tell them anything. Nothing. Okay? And any of the questions the police are going to ask you will generally be used against you in prosecution. So, suppose that a person is riding a stolen motorcycle, okay? That they purchased.
Allegedly.
Well, no, we can pose that the motorcycle is stolen. That's okay. But they purchased it from someone who fenced it, right? And they had no idea it was stolen. It's got a forged title or whatever. You don't have to say, if the police ask you if you know that the bike is stolen, you don't have a requirement to answer, because once you get locked into a story, any story can be used against you in court. It's not necessary to speak to the police. And if the police really give a rider a hard time, all they have to say is, officer, I invoke my right to remain silent. If you want me to answer any further questions, respectfully, please call my attorney. Other than that, I have nothing further to discuss with you.
My attorney's riding the motorcycle right in front of me, so you just have to walk up and talk to him.
Yeah, and if the police continue to give you a hard time, you can ask, am I being arrested? And if not, please give me my tickets and let me be on my way.
Right on. All right. So we need to wind down now. We still didn't talk about, honestly, how you can be smart about deviating from the law. I mean, maybe this isn't the right forum. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that tonight. We're talking with the lawman here tonight.
Well,
so
I certainly can't advise.
We can't even talk about it. It's already been.
I can't advise anybody on how to evade the law.
True.
That's not allowed.
You can't advise anybody. That's true. So we won't talk about that tonight. I sure can on another show. That's for sure. About how to be smart about breaking the law. But let's go around the room. Let's give some closing comments. But I'm cracking up for you, man.
Just to wrap it up really good, there is for anybody who's interested in laws about motorcycle riding and all that, you can join your local abate team. There's a 5-borough abate team. You can look up Jamie R1 Victorious. He is actually the go-to guy that I would know if anybody's looking for some good information when it comes to law. Again, in order to get these laws passed, I think we as a biker community will need to get together and actually stand in front of the next mayor, the next congressman, and show in numbers that if we got together, because there is hundreds of thousands of bikers in the state of New York, in the city of New York as well, that we can go to their office and say, you want all these votes? What can you do for us?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to do. That's for another show.
Truth. Thank you. David Berman, thank you for participating. I appreciate all your input tonight. That's so awesome, dude. What you got to show out, like what you got to give out to the peoples?
Well, first, Josh, you know, I want to thank you for allowing me to be of service to the motorcycle community. You know, the biker community has given a tremendous amount to me, and I am just really interested in giving back, you know. That being said, you know, if anybody has any specific questions, they can always reach me at my law firm. Again, my number at my firm is 877-377-8666. I would say, you know, ride safe. You know, please try to stay away from getting injured when you ride. But if you do, yeah, you really should call an attorney, because that exemption of motorcycles from NoFault really puts bikers at a great disadvantage when it comes to being injured in car accidents, and it puts the defendant or the person who hit you in a more favorable position in litigation. Anyways, you know, like I said, ride safe, try to follow the law, and
if you don't, call Berman.
Yeah. Thank you very much to the whole biker community.
Right on. All right. So, again, just to wrap up, man, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate that. There's a lot of opposition to the motorcycle culture in general, you know, and from the general public. Sometimes motorcycle riders seem to unjustly be targeted for stops, for searches, for charges, just to name a few things. But actually, here in New York City, there's even more motorcycle specific laws and regulations and stipulations, stuff like that, than I've ever experienced. I've never seen this sort of thing in Massachusetts, Virginia, Japan. Where else have I ridden? That's pretty much about it as far as states and countries. But we can always make things better for us. So by abiding by the law and by supporting local like organizations that are doing good things for the community, you can improve our situation immensely. I hope out of everything you've heard tonight that you've gathered that, you know, you can do good things to make things better for us, so that it doesn't have to be so regulated and so dangerous, I guess, for us to be out here. I appreciate David. I appreciate Butter. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Yeah. Hold on a sec.
A quick comment to make.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to reiterate, please, anybody who is listening, the comments that I've made in this podcast, this interview, should not be taken as legal advice. Right. Okay. Nothing I've said implies an attorney-client relationship between myself and anybody watching this show. If you have specific questions, please address them to me at the firm or to an attorney who's licensed in your state.
Yes.
Okay. That being said, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, man. And finally, again, thank you for joining. Please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you being here. Leave a thumbs up on this video Subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate some more viewers. We always do this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Beyond the Apex, we'll have another episode next week. So join in, subscribe, and enjoy the content. And other than that, leave this world better than you found it. Peace.